Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Ellen Slater, and I am the CEO and founder of RepCap. And some of you may know me. I've also been writing about the future of work and talking about the future of work now for apparently over 20 years, a realization that hit me last week at HR Tech whenever we were walking away. And I am super excited to moderate this conversation. We are talking about two of my favorite things, one of which is hiring, and the other part is AI. So we've got all these folks out here, like we're telling over and over again, AI is like the future, and we all have to do all this AI in our businesses. But AI, using the tech, requires people, which means hiring people with those skills. So I'm going to be your moderator, and I'm going to hop around, and I've got this awesome panel. I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves. Let's go to my first guest. Vincent, you're up.
Hey everyone, I'm Vincent Lonij. I'm the technical lead at SkillsTrust. And at SkillsTrust, what we do is we help companies understand basically everything around skills, but more specifically, what are the skills that you need in your organization? What are the skills that people have, either the people that are already in your organization or the people you're trying to hire, right? That's a relevant for the discussion we're going to have today. And so basically, I lead the technical side of the business. I've in the past founded my own AI recruitment company. So I know a lot about the recruitment field, know a lot about AI, have originally technical background. So I'm happy to talk about all the topics today from that lens, and super excited to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, Vincent, you're like the most meta of the guests. It's like you're the AI skills person who built an AI skills tool. So we can jump on into the details of that later.
Yeah, sometimes I feel a little bit like I'm like a sort of like AI jack of all trades, where like I know just enough about everything to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of dangerous, who's my next guest?
Hey, everybody. Good to see everyone here. So my name is Hong Lee. I curate a community called Recruiting Brainfood. I still self-identify as a recruiter, even though I haven't really sent a resume to anybody in anger for about 10 years or so. These days, what I do is interact with recruiters across the globe. I'm here to basically learn from them what their practices are. And I guess my purpose here today is to kind of bring that recruiter perspective to this amazing panel here.
Yes, and I will say this because you can't. I mean, because you're too humble for it. But I feel like you have built one of the most robust communities of recruiters that has a very diverse, very highly engaged community, where I do think it's one of the most supportive communities I've ever seen online, that manages to actually kind of go in and offline in a way that it's like hiring managers, recruiters, everybody, and like there's just nothing negative about it. It's really weird. So we should do a whole separate episode about that. How do you keep all these people so positive?
Yeah. I need to invite you to some of the back channels, Mary Ellen.
Keep it hidden. Keep it hidden. Let me believe this lie. So, all right. And up next, Sandi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sandi Besen. I'm currently an applied AI researcher at IBM and Nudesic, an IBM company who's a subsidiary. In my free time, I publish a lot of articles and write about data science and AI, some thought pieces, and some tutorials to follow along, trying to demystify and break down that wall that is typically a hard entry to AI. And I also advise for AI startups.
Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing about Sandi that I brought her in for is that not only so she's a data scientist, but she also has a theater and acting and performance background. And it was like she's like the perfect example of my argument that in the age of AI, like the liberal arts and sciences and performing arts and creative arts will be more important than ever. Because, get yourself a data scientist who used to be in theater. Like you've got everything then. So you've got everything.
Thanks.
All right. And then last but not least, our host today.
Hello, everyone. My name's Amit. I'm the CRO of X-Team. X-Team's been around for about 18 years providing software engineers for our clients. What we do is we hire the amazing tech talent from around the world and make them available on a full-time engagement for our clients. The really lovely thing with it is that we've been remote from birth. So before even COVID and everyone suddenly discovered remote, we were there from the beginning because we believed that the best tech talent could be anywhere. So we endeavor to source the very best people for our clients to help them achieve what they're looking to do.
Awesome. And then we also had the opportunity to meet in person for the first time last week, which was just kind of a really nice opportunity we didn't expect. Normally you live in Australia, and you had came in and joined us at HR Tech, and then you're coming in today from LA. And you are. I will also just going to describe y'all. I'm going to tell y'all this story before we move off. Like I described, him as like one of the probably some of the most charming people that I've ever met. And this is why I now say this, like, you get the award. We were supposed to meet up at a party at HR Tech. Those of you who've been to HR Tech know how crazy it is. He went to the wrong party, right? So he went, it was this right restaurant, but there was like 6 parties going on thing. And when we finally found each other, he got himself, like, the wrong party that he went to was a sit-down dinner party, and they kept him. They wouldn't give him back to me. Like, he's literally in the wrong place, and I couldn't get him to come. They were like, no, he's at our party now.
Marianne, what an excellent opportunity to make new friends.
I know. I'm just like, I was like, that was next level, man. It was like, wow. Like, yeah, no, you don't. Okay, enjoy. It was a whole dinner party of like other people at that conference would have killed to be at that table. And he just wandered in, and they were like, no, you stay here.
Everyone's people. Nice to meet new people, right?
So that was my favorite. That was the highlight, honestly, of the whole thing for me last week, was that I was like, wait, you're at the wrong party and no one cares. All right, cool. All right, so let's jump on in here. We have lots to talk about. So what do we want to talk about? So I've been rethinking your job architecture, which is a fancy way of saying, like, so what is an AI skill? And how do we find them, and who has them? We're going to talk about how to source these people, right? Because this is something that you can't ask for the 10 years of experience using something that has only existed for a month and a half. It's a very fuzzy market. We're going to have to be open-minded about how we get in there. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about different ways to get that talent, because if you are thinking creatively about your job architecture, there's different ways you can get them, right? There's like kind of an on-demand model, like what we have like with X Team, do you hire in-house, and like, how do you make that decision? Because the answer is not right for every organization, depending on their goals. So first, let's jump in and talk about job architecture. And I'm going to start with you on Vincent, because this is literally what you live for. What is an AI skill? What does that mean? What do we mean when we say this? Like, what is a job architecture, and what does it have to do with AI?
Okay, so you've got a couple of questions there, right? So you asked, well, what is an AI skill? And you've got the term job architecture on the screen there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we probably also should talk about what that is. Mm-hmm. But I think let's start with your first question about, well, what is an AI skill? And I think what's really interesting about the world right now is that, well, I don't think anybody really agrees on that, in the sense that sort of traditionally we might be thinking of AI skills in terms of, okay, can you build AI models? Do you know machine learning? Do you know how to train models or program large scale data systems, like that sort of thing? But this really interesting development, like especially in the last 2 years since ChatGPT has entered the stage, I think AI has sort of become accessible to people without technical skills. And it's sort of like led to this explosion of the number of applications of AI, but also it really changed the types of skills that you need to be able to effectively use AI, right? So think about what do you need to effectively use just something like ChatGPT? Well, sure, you need to log into the app and type something, but you still have to interpret what you get out, right? Do you trust? Like, does it make mistakes? What are the kinds of mistakes? Under what circumstances is it okay to copy paste that? And under what circumstances can you absolutely, definitely not do that? So that's a sense of AI literacy. You can also think about, what are the skills you need to look at your organization and change the processes within your organization to better integrate AI tools, for example, right? So in that sense, we've thought a lot about this at SkillsTrust, and so we broadly categorize AI skills into these 3 different buckets, like AI hard skills, which is building models, AI tools, which is just how to evaluate and use the tools that exist in the market, and then AI literacy, which is this really broad bucket of how do I think about the use of AI within my organization? How do I change processes? How do I evaluate the claims that are being made about it? Mm-hmm. Maybe a bit of a long answer. Any questions about that so far?
That's a great framework. So, Sandi, I'd be curious to see how you would answer that and like how you might build on that, because I do think that interesting. There's like that first bucket that you described, Vincent, is like, I think something that only lives inside the brains of a handful of people at the most well-funded companies and inside universities. Like actually building it at that level, that's pretty rare. But that we can't all go hire those people. So I don't know, Sandi, how would you answer that? Like, how should we be thinking about this?
Well, I'll piggyback on what Vincent said about the role evolving, and then maybe go into how we can upskill our own people, or how we can recruit to fill those positions. Mm-hmm. Like Vincent mentioned, the role of a data scientist has changed immensely. It used to be very segmented. There was kind of data engineers that did a lot of the data management work. There were data scientists that cleaned data and then created traditional machine learning models. There were business analysts that created visualizations. And then you had developers that would put it all together and productionalize it. But I would say that those categories are shrinking or expanding, depending on how you look at it, where now the role is kind of conforming into a smaller subset of those, where there isn't as much need for a traditional data scientist in some cases. In some cases, there still are. But those roles are kind of getting combined with more of developer type roles, where data scientists are also now expected, or at least applied data scientists are now expected to put things into production, to know how to create systems or AI systems, rather than just focusing on creating one machine learning model. And so that's a huge change I think is occurring, and how we upskill our own people is very important. First, in how we select the people to upskill, and what types of characteristics and attributes that people that might have a higher propensity for success will look like. And then also how we guide them in a world that doesn't have a defined roadmap yet. And I think that's the most challenging part.
Oh yeah. So Hung, I'll let you take that one. Like, pick this up. So what is when you hear that job architecture? Imagine if you were a working recruiter right now. Like what would you do? Like how would you hire for this?
I'd spend more time with Vincent and Sandi is the first thing I would do. Because the truth is, by the time it comes to a recruiter, we're often dealing with like legacy stuff. And what I'm hearing from the two sort of panelists that have spoken so far is that we're in a rapidly changing world, whereby even job roles, job titles that were a pretty consensus in industry 3-4 years or so ago may no longer be the kind of people that we would look for, or indeed may not even be the kind of job roles that people would embrace these days. So I think we have to recognize that, yes, we're in a period of flux. I love what Sandi was talking about when she was talking, about what the core competencies or the core traits that would kind of signal someone to be very capable in these fields. That's typically what you do recruit for when you've got kind of an emergent field. Where you have a very mature field that's pretty, set, it's not changing so much. That's when you do tend to think about domain expertise. That's when you think about experience, numbers of years experience, et cetera, becomes sort of more of a priority when those sort of fields are kind of static. Think, for instance, you're hiring for a lawyer, for instance, or you're hiring for, a practice that basically hasn't changed for a long time, then domain sort of knowledge goes to the top. However, when it's emergent like this, then that's when you kind of look for more characteristics and traits, because it's moving so fast. How do we assess for those? And that's the big challenge, because oftentimes those attributes are not documented. They're often not even self-recognized. Like we're relying on people to actually be aware of their own capabilities, and we're very bad at that. If you interviewed 10 people to ask them, okay, what are you particularly good at? They will volunteer things that they would self-identify with, but it may not actually map against what they're sort of objectively competent at. So this is a huge challenge, and I think this is where assessment technology, assessment sort of methods will evolve also to try and tease these out, so that we can together come to an idea as to what the right sort of distribution of skills are to the sort of work that we're looking to do in the future.
I feel like it's gotten, there was a run there for a while where we were all trying to do personality assessments to figure out if people could adapt to digital work, right? And now we flip back into skills. I feel like, again, this comes back to just being at this for a little while. Like we went from skills, like wanting to evaluate, we use experience as a proxy for skills. And then we got to these personality tests. And if y'all remember this, everybody was taking something like, you're supposed to tell by how extroverted I am, whether or not I'm going to be great at whatever, I know Aon, one of their assessments for around the cyber stuff, could actually tell within about 6 or 7 questions how likely someone was to fall for a phishing scam. It's they're that level of prediction. And then I see, Vincent, where you've taken us back to no, actually, let's look at the skills in this. And obviously in HR tech, everything was about skills, performance, skills. So we seem to be kind of in this pendulum. And I'm going to throw this at you. What do you think is going on here? When you think about the clients for X Team and who they're hiring for when they come to y'all looking for help with AI, what are they looking for? Who are they looking for?
They're looking for an opportunity to have people that will level them up, right? They're looking for people that will infuse into all the different departments. And I really like what the other panelists have said about, AI is becoming more accessible to people. Right? So it's not just about setting up a AI department within IT. This is about infusing it into every part of the business, into finance, into marketing, into HR. And so they want people who will be able to adapt and learn and think that way, so that they're not just living in a bubble, but infusing that into the different departments to get everyone to be on that journey together.
And I think a really important factor here is also, what is the goal that a company is trying to achieve when they are, for example, hiring, right? It's still true if you're talking about upskilling or other sort of anything related with skills. What are you trying to accomplish? Because for some companies, they might actually be themselves building AI tools, right? And so they're going to need expertise that allows them to train new models and have highly technical skills. But other companies, they're just looking at the world and they're saying, oh, everybody's talking about AI. We need some too. What do we do? Right? And if you're at that stage, you just need a different set of skills to move forward. A simple question could be, how do I get everybody in my company access to ChatGPT? That sounds like a super basic question, but it's actually not as easy as it sounds in a real organization, right? Because if you just throw that at people, really bad things might happen. So it probably needs to be a company with a little bit of training, you need a bit of management around this, and that requires skills, right? And I would argue, in the broadest sense of the word, that's an AI skill, right? How do you drive adoption of an AI tool within an organization? I think that's allowed to be called an AI skill, but we just have to be precise when we talk about this, and not call every AI skill just an AI skill without a qualifier, right? So AI hard skills are different from, say, AI literacy, but they are both very important. And as an organization, you first have to kind of figure out, what do I even need before you run out and go and hire people?
Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the things I've also found. People think they need to build something. And I think one of the first questions they should ask themselves is, does this already exist? Especially when
will GPT just do it out of the box, right?
Right. And there's more stuff, even looking outside of ChatGPT and OpenAI. There's so many other models, and people are building LLMs to do all these different things. And maybe it already exists, and maybe you don't. And I also look at I think wrapping your mind around, this comes back to the literacy question, and wrapping your mind around just how much energy these tools require, just how much intense. What Microsoft is talking about, trying to get 3 Mile Island reopened so that it can power. the stuff we're doing with AI, like you're not building your own LLM. Like Microsoft has to reopen a shuttered nuclear power plant. Like that's where the literacy part comes in.
Yeah, but absolutely. So the predominant thing that a lot of organizations, are coming to us, they're bored or like banging, why aren't we using AI? Our competitors are using AI. We're going to be left behind. And it's come from that perception, but it's not about building it. There is amazing things out there. A big element of the AI skills that people are looking for, the engineers that they want, is how do I connect to it to do more with less? How do I get access to this immense power and streamline it into my business so that my team aren't just doing it on their own separately, but rather that it's infused into our business to make us all more effective and to use it in a uniform way.
On this note, just chiming in on and defending the bandwagon CEOs here just want, let's bring in more AI. We can criticize them. I think you're right to do that. But at the same time, they're kind of directionally correct in the sense that what you do want to do is increase that AI level of literacy within your business. Now, you can do that by obviously education and L&D investment and all this type of stuff, but you can also do that by making sure the people you hire are bringing in literacy into the organization. And so this reminds me very much of, back in the pre-internet era. I mean, I actually have some experience of working pre-internet, aging myself massively here. However, it was in the same, I feel we're very much in the same sort of boat. It's like, yes, you need to hire for certain types of roles, irrespective of the proximity, if you like, to this new technology. But you probably would do better hiring people that have an interest in, an aptitude for, some enthusiasm for this new direction, because that's where you want to drive your company. So you want to basically increase the literacy by just getting kind of enthusiasts, curious people into your organization that want to learn rather than, hiring in refuseniks, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this gets into kind of maybe my next question here around the sourcing piece of this. And I'm actually going to go back to you, Amit, about this, because we were chatting about this even kind of in the green room about how do we hire people for this and the culture fit about this. And culture fit is kind of a dangerous word. Like, I think it got misused and there were some associations that wound up being like hiring people like me that I like, but that's not what necessarily it means. But it does mean things like what you just mentioned, how do I get these curious people? So how does X team do culture fit, like in a way that is also respectful of diversity and inclusion and all those wonderful things?
It's probably the most important thing. When organizations come to us, they say, this is our tech stack, this is what we're looking for, this is the time zone that we need to align. But the elements that our team is looking for is to understand what is their culture, how does the team work? Are they wanting people who will challenge them, or are they wanting people who will just go with what they're doing currently? Because when you're looking to insource people, the best way to make it work is to have someone who's just joining your team, someone who's going to be injected in there and make everyone better, rather than, this piece of work, we'll take it out and we'll let this other agency do it out there. Because then you're creating this tension between your organization and the other people. So we look for the right people to click in there. But I mean, we've all been saying the same word. It's people with curiosity is a big element now that we're talking about AI, because you're looking for people who are just wanting to do problem solving. With AI being something that has evolved so quickly this year, the big element of, are these people that are looking at a challenge and looking at a way to, how do I automate that? How do I make that run in a better way?
Okay. Sandi, how would you answer this? I mean, you sit in an interesting spot. Like, you're inside an organization that has enough draw. Like, you've got good employer brand equity. You get smart people. They know they get to do smart things. There's resources to do cool things. How do you find these people? Like, how do you decide who's going to be a good fit?
Yeah. And I think everything you said, Marilyn, is definitely true about a company having the resources does make a difference. However, I would also say that just not every person that works in a large company that might be doing cool things is actually doing cool things. And I think that's something to remember. I think that's a little bit of a misconception, right? Like, because you work at a Meta or a Google or a Microsoft, there are still lots of other teams that haven't touched this technology and aren't touching this technology really. And so I think the pool of talent out there is definitely still strong, because people do recognize that. Some things that I think are important attributes to look for specifically in someone is the ability to try something first, to make sure that they're doing their own research first before they ask for help. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of times no one to ask for help. You can, especially if you're working truly on more of the emerging end of things. Sure, in some of the more established AI solutions or AI patterns, like we now have a little bit more of an understanding about how to create chat-based systems, which generative AI, like back and forth question and answering systems. So you can start to find that material and some guidance and tutorial online, but that was not the case 4, 5, or 6 months ago. People were still trying to figure that out. So to find the characteristics in a person that is okay to be, is okay with ambiguity, is okay to be on the cutting edge of something, and also to have the trust in their management to understand that this is new technology. It doesn't always work. And that doesn't always mean that the person is not good enough. Sometimes it's just not there yet. And that's important from a company side to understand that this is still research.
It really is. Like, there's not a lot of certainty here. And some people, I mean, we all have different levels of tolerance for that. I actually listened to a podcast earlier this week from my friend Jen Benz. She was with a crew at Bright Arrow, and she was talking about one of the challenges here is like she has this as a leader of a team, she has a very high tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. Other people don't necessarily have that. Like, it makes them really uncomfortable. So like, how do you assess for that? That's a tricky sort of thing to do. I'm going to kick that to you now, Vincent. Like, how do we find these people that are comfortable with not knowing what's about to happen? And Googling things.
Great question. So first of all, like Sandi, I totally agree with everything you said. And I think it was very well put about the qualities you need to work with AI, because there's so much about it that we just don't know, right? And I think, Marielle, what you're sort of asking is, because this is it's a personality trait rather than a skill, right? If we're talking about people who are comfortable with ambiguity, or people who are sort of willing to experiment. I think, Sandy, that's sort of what you're getting at. Or the correct answer doesn't exist yet, right? You have to sort of find it on your own, and you do that through experimentation. And these are legitimately hard things to test for, in the sense that the field of psychology has developed a wide range of different personality tests, but they have limited validity. They might be valid in an academic setting in a way that they're not valid in a recruitment setting. Because let's face it, when a candidate is applying for a job, they kind of know what you're looking for, right? And if you're an employer, you're probably talking about what you're looking for. And so in a recruitment setting, you can't always trust the outcome of a personality test. So what I would say sort of broadly is, you need a recruitment process, right? It's not just one step where you test the personality and then you just check that box and you move on and never look at it anymore, right? If you think of personality is a really important aspect to be able to do the job, sure, find a test for it, but also, meet your candidates, right? Talk to them.
Crazy talk.
Get to know them.
Crazy talk. We're not talking to candidates. Like, this is 2024. We don't talk to candidates.
There's not one step in a recruitment process that will just answer all of your questions, right?
Wow. So do we, I mean, it's funny because it has become really involved, but then the candidates, so we feel like, and I'm just going to kind of set this out here for a second before I kick this to you, Hung. Candidates, we say, okay, look, we don't know. It's not this one thing. There's like possibly the skills piece that we need to assess for somehow. Do you actually know how to do the thing that you know how to do? And we don't just want to use experience as a proxy because that's not reliable. Education's not that reliable. We're trying to run personality tests on people. We give them interviews, and like in the end result is actually a pretty drawn out hiring process, which candidates tell us over and over again they hate. And if I'm trying to hire for an AI related job in which like there's only a handful of people, how many Sandys are there really? There are not that many Sandys, right? Like, so how do I do this? Like, how do I actually create a process that a candidate is going to tolerate somebody in that much demand and feel good about and also get the person I want? And Hung, how are people doing this from what you're hearing?
I don't think you create a single process, is the truth. I think you create multiple processes based on the current status of the candidate. So one of the problems in recruiting is that we love to standardize everything. Because once we have standardization, then we can put a report on it, and then we can report how great we are in terms of like conversion metrics and all this type of stuff. It looks wonderful on a spreadsheet. However, human beings are in different mental states when they're considering job opportunities. And those mental states don't conveniently fit into a spreadsheet. So for instance, you should have a different job, sort of a different assessment flow if you've advertised the job and dealing with applicants to that job compared to if you were headhunting a candidate from a competitor organization. You can't apply the same, you can't put those candidates into the same hiring funnel, so to say. You effectively need to have them in separate spreadsheets if you want to bang on with that spreadsheet metaphor. So you got to think very carefully about what the mental state of the candidate is. Did you approach the candidate or did the candidate approach you? There's a quick binary right there, because what happens in terms of your next step is determined on what happens in that first step. So this also sort of has an implication as to how much you can ask for this person to do. So, for instance, you talk about the length of a recruiting process. It turns out that if you have a job application flow, the person's applied to a job that they've seen as an advert, you generally don't want to have a huge recruitment process, because this is an active job seeker that's likely to be in other sort of job assessment flows. So they are also going into different job ads. So you can't be doing it for months and months. However, if I was headhunting a competitor, headhunting a key hire from a competitor, I'd be whining and dining that person for as long as it took. Right? I would not be injecting artificial pressure to say, hey, you've got to, get into this flow and start being assessed. And hey, here's a 3-hour test, do this, this, and this. A lot of cultivation. So the mental state of the person that you're dealing with really determines the sort of recruiting process you should design. My own perspective is that you should think of it in those terms, like what is coming at you. So the direction of the candidate, are you going to them or are they coming to you? That's 2 separate flows. You design it separately that way. Even if you have to report it upstairs, have 2 different spreadsheets to do that, do those measurements.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is where it gets tough, because I think you're right. I think about it the same way with marketing. Like in my world, we have the same conversation. It's like if your buyer that comes in hot, ready to have a conversation, you don't tell them to go fill out a form, right? It's not the same vibe. So, I mean, I'm going to pull this to you because y'all are known for, you've got this very, very strong vetting process that kind of people go through and you figure out that match and that experience, but people also don't hate it. Like your candidates don't hate it somehow. Like it's, what are you doing over there that reconciles those 2 things?
We're looking for a 2-way connection. It's got to be that both sides are equal. Both the person who's, looking to source the people and this amazing talent that is incredibly valuable. And if you think of both being equal, then your role is really not to source, but it's to match. So what we're looking for is to go, okay, do the skill sets that you have click with this company or with that company. And when you do that, then you're not wasting people's time. So when our clients come to us and they say, we need 10 AI engineers, we're not just going to throw 100 people at them. We're going to interview a lot of people and understand, are they the right fit, and present them to that client? Or if they're not the right fit for that client, which one of our clients do they fit? Because our main job is to create interconnections that will work straight away and will be long lasting. And if we do that, then we've done something right, because both sides can end an engagement. So you've got to be thinking about the engineer as well as the client as to how to fit. And Vincent, you said it before, it's about meeting the people. We will not let a client engage with any of our engineers until they've met them, until they see that there's a personal connection that clicks.
And then, so it's Yoti is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that it's like the specific amazing people that you've managed to put in these jobs.
Absolutely, Jody. And our recruitment team is called the cavalry, because what we say, like, when our client has an issue, here come the cavalry. Their role is pivotal because they're ensuring that this massive flow of people that are trying to get into X team are being assessed to go, are you a good fit for the clients? Because we don't want to waste your time and introduce you to a company if you're not a fit. Why put you through a grueling interview process with a client if you're never going to work through? So a lot of times developers that come to X team might take 1, 2, 3 years to make it in, but we would give them feedback to say, hey, you're not quite ready fit for this client or other clients, but here are some things that you should learn. Here are some things that you should do and experience. Come back and talk to us because there's some spark in you. We just want you to cultivate it a bit more before you're ready to join the organization. If you throw the wrong person in, you're doing damage to both sides.
This is very true. This is very true. What else? What are some other...
There's something that, just like one thing I noticed there, Amit, you're saying is you give candidates feedback. And I think this is like a highly undervalued practice and a highly underutilized practice. I remember this from like times that I was hiring myself, where even when we put candidates through a very rigorous like interview process, like everybody that we ended up not hiring, I would sort of like offer them like a personal call with me to talk about, okay, well, what could you improve? And so we offer this to all candidates. And you think, oh, that's a huge amount of work. But the thing is, like, actually, most candidates like appreciate the offer more than to actually like do it, right? So not many people took me up on the offer, but they appreciated like being offered. And the people that took the call, like they told me things like, Vincent, no one has ever offered to do this for me before, right? So that's a connection that you make with somebody that's going to last, right? And then in a few years' time, if like this person is the right fit, they're going to remember you. And so I think companies probably underestimate how valuable this is and overestimate how hard it is, right? So I think feedback is just like such a valuable tool to achieve that goal, Mary Ellen, that you were talking about, of on the one hand having a rigorous recruitment process, but on the other hand having candidates not hate it.
So many of our best engineers will say that, whilst they've been here for 7-10 years, they'll say, oh, it took me 2-3 years to get in, but at every interview, there was a value add, right? If you can treat that interview process as an opportunity to educate the applicant to say, hey, not a good fit, but here are the things that you should do. You've added value to their viewpoint, and they will want to come back and work for X team because they've benefited even when they didn't get the role.
Right, Sandy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Vincent, I think that's a wonderful thing that you did. I think as people, that's typically uncomfortable for us to do, and so we try to avoid those types of things. And I don't know if that is a reason why a lot of companies don't do that or not, but I think that that's true, right? It's uncomfortable, but as a candidate, it's a huge signal who takes the call, who wants to get better. And if I were hiring, I would certainly hold that person to a different standard or see that personality trait in them, that they actually want the constructive feedback to improve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get technical here for a second and answer. We got a couple of questions over here on the channel. And because I think in some of this, we've talked about just recruiting sort of at a high level. And like it is tech recruiting, right? And like, how do we do this? Because I think these things are universal principles. But one of the questions I have from Diego is like, what are the most in demand when we talk about the actual technical skills? And like, what are some of those things that are really hot right now that are hard to hire for? Like thinking about the landscape. And I think kind of fitting that in your framework around like the literacy, sort of going in like that deep. Well, what are the things that are like, what is out there right now? Like what's tough to hire for? And anybody can answer.
It depends on the tech stacks of the clients. We find a lot because what we're doing is we're connecting to the technology that they're already in and finding the bridge to connect that with machine learning to AI. So some organizations have very obscure technology stacks that you're retaining there, and it's how do you connect the bridge to the machine learning.
Like that apocryphal at this point probably story about at LSU, I went to a university town, and the idea that they told me that our entire database of some sort, the whole university still runs on COBOL. Like, is that true? I don't know if that's true, but that'd be really funny if it were true. So how do you have a conversation about AI and machine learning if that were actually true?
COBOL is excellent technology for banking, and it's very stable and has been used for decades for that reason. But yeah, it is very old in comparison to what's now.
You're like,
there's actually a hope, a vague hope that AI would actually solve the COBOL problem. Because, I mean, it's just as an aside, but the truth is the COBOL demographic is actually retiring and dying out. So it's no longer a popular technology for people to learn. And so we've had every successive year, the population of people that know how to do this and know how to maintain these systems is actually shrinking. But of course, you can't refactor it because you need a bunch of COBOL sort of programmers who then can refactor it into Java or whatever it is. So very, very difficult to do. There is a theory that, okay, maybe AI can do this because it can then scan, obviously, the COBOL code base and then say, okay, what are the equivalent functions, and can you recreate this exactly as the functionality we want, just completely the same degree of robustness, and do it this way. So there is a hope, but so far I've not seen any particular organization take that seriously. But yeah, I think at the very least it's a backstop for us, because the truth is we do have a problem of skills that are no longer attractive. It's also a technology that basically is now gatekept a little bit. So if you're a COBOL programmer and you're kind of just thinking, okay, I'm on $5,000 a day, I'm going to keep hold of that until my retirement in a couple of years. So it's a real problem, particularly given the centrality of a lot of the systems that run society based on really old tech.
I feel like right now, Sandi and Vincent are going to have a call after this, and you're going to be like, yeah, so let's build that. And we're just going to go ahead and...
That's one of the most common use cases that we get in consulting, or that IBM Consulting and Nudesic gets, is code conversion. Like people want to update their systems, and the reliability of AI at the moment is debatable on how well it will do that. There still requires definitely human oversight, but that's one of the largest demands.
I mean, Vincent, do you encounter that a lot? Your wheels are spinning over there? You're like, yeah, I could build that. Like,
So, I mean, I don't know anything about COBOL other than that it exists.
You do now. You have a ChatGPT subscription. You do now.
Exactly, right. I do think, by the way, this like code translation problem is an application of AI to be smart. It might indeed be the solution to updating all this legacy tech that hasn't been updated in 20 years. And maybe we finally will get some banking apps that work. But who knows? But I'm sort of like thinking a little bit about something that I think, Sandi, you said this all the way at the beginning of the conversation, right? So you were talking about all the different kinds of jobs that are part of like building an AI product, whether this is data cleaning or training models or putting something into production. tying that back into this question of, well, which are the skills that are really hard to find? And I think when companies talk about, oh, we can't find AI talent, I think part of the problem is they kind of want one person that can do all of these things, has 7 years of experience doing it, and will work for, like, I'm not going to name a number, but let's say a low salary, right? And that doesn't exist, because all the people that have 7 years of experience putting AI models in production, like, they're going to go work at companies that have big budgets, right? So either you can match that budget, and then, like, hey, if you have a high budget, hiring isn't hard, right? I said, well, not as hard anyway. So you kind of have to figure out, well, where are you in the market, and then adjust accordingly. So you have to hire somebody that has less experience, or maybe they can't quite do all of these things, or you can't find all these skills in single individuals, so maybe you need two people. And then the problem becomes more tractable, right? You might actually, like, be able to, like, fill your AI skills gaps in your company. But you just have to be a little bit more realistic about how you do it.
And I'd like to add on to what Amit said about the tech stack and bringing it back to that. You know, I think it really depends on the urgency of the need as well. Like, Amit, you're dealing with someone who you're like, you know, I need this amount of people, I need this solved, I have 3 months, you know, that type of contract with the client, which is kind of a slightly different recruiting skill than if you're hiring in an internal team, right? Where you have a little bit more time to bring someone up to speed. You can look for not necessarily someone that knows, I'm just going to use COBOL because you said it, but knows COBOL and AI, which is probably not a huge overlap. And someone who's not as familiar with, like, AWS versus Azure, but has experience in the industry and maybe a adjacent technology, and can learn a new library, can learn a new technology. So I think the urgency also plays a huge role there. Are you hiring for something that needs to be done in 3 months right now, where you need to know everything about the technology coming in? Or are you trying to build something and the technology is not super clear yet, and so you can have a little bit more leniency around the actual foundational skills that you hire for versus the technology skill?
The best element that we find, whether it's small, medium, or large companies, where we're adding a lot of value, is where they're bringing us in to infuse their team and to level them all up. That they might be on that, you know, older technology or current or something like that, but we're bringing people in not to take the technology away, not to take the problem away, but to solve it together and make everyone better. And that's where it works the best. And we find that we've got some amazing clients where they wouldn't know who's the ex-teamer and who's the, you know, person from Riot or from Fox or something like that. They're just all part of the team, and together they're all leveling up. And that's where it works beautifully.
I think about the projects even that I work on in this space, because I come at the AI conversation from the perspective of a marketer and from a content person, you know, and I've been pretty bullish on this tech for a while. I realize, but I think about it from a different direction, right? I'm probably more in your literacy category of, like, do you know how to use this? Like, I have some understanding of, like, the tech, but I don't actually need to know that much about the models, other than, yeah, this is a probabilistic model and you can't fact check with it, right? But I find that there's a lot of learning that I get when I work with other people through this. Like, the majority, I can't even say that I learned it by taking a class. I can't say that I learned it by, it's like you literally learn it by doing the work. Like, you're doing the work. Like, that is how I've learned everything that I have learned about AI in the last 3 years. Like, I can't say that anybody taught me. I mean, would you, Sandy, where do you go to learn about this stuff?
My ears.
Yeah. Vincent, if you have a question about this, what do you do?
If I want to learn more about this?
Yeah, you have a question. You hit a problem, and you're just like, say AI stuff. Where would you go to learn? Like, where would you? Because I think that says something interesting about how we hire for this. Like, where do you go to learn?
Well, so, you know, I think I would do the obvious thing. Like, Google things, and maybe like the these days you ask ChatGPT, but the problem is often you don't get the answer, right? Like especially because this is a new field, and it's, first of all, it's moving fast, right? The answer that was true a year ago might not be true anymore today, or the answer might just not be out there yet. And so, like, this is something that Sandy was saying in the beginning too, right? You have to experiment. You got to figure out these things yourself. You have to just try things. If I want to know if a particular AI technology can solve a particular problem, like probably my first instinct is to just try it, right? Pick up the tool, point it at the problem that I wanted to solve, and see what happens. And it probably won't work as well as if I had 6 months to tune it, but you get some sense of like, right? Am I warm here, right? Am I going in the right direction? Is there any hope that there's like something that might reach a level of quality that is appropriate for the use case, right? Which also matters. Is this an internal tool that I'm making? Are clients going to see the output? Is a human going to rewrite this before the client sees this? I think, Mary Ellen, you presumably do the same stuff when you use AI tools in your marketing business, right? I bet you have way more tools that you use internally than the ones where you let the output go to the clients, right?
There's a dozen. There's like at least a dozen. And yesterday I did a conversation, like I think with like an investment banker that was evaluating some tools. And there was a moment in there where he was like, wait, why do you use this, this, and this? And I'm like, well, I'm just constantly comparing the output, and I'm always trying to break them in new ways. And like sometimes, and I can't just not, and they're like, why don't you just pick one and stay with one? And I'm like, well, because the best one this week won't be the best one next week. Like, I don't know. I can't. Like, I was running through, like, we've got Writer. Writer's our primary tool, for content generation. It's the most reliable, least likely to hallucinate. They built me a financial services oriented LLM on the back. Yeah, it's like, thanks, guys. But I definitely have ChatGPT open. I use Perplexity all the time now. HubSpot's got stuff built into it. I've got Gemini in my Google Docs. And so I was like walking through at any given, but I can't, just because one of them was best today doesn't mean it's even going to be best 4 hours from now.
Isn't that so exciting, though?
For me.
The speed and availability. I was at this event with a collection of founders of companies, some of the biggest founders in LA tech, and they were saying, if I was to start my business now, as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, it's a completely, like they were getting, hardware structures and putting all that, like they just go on the cloud. They just get like AI tools. The ability to turn a spark of an idea into a reality has never been easier, has never been faster. And that's really exciting for, people who perhaps had a thought, but weren't sure how to turn that into a reality. And that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Or like, I think of things that I do in terms of the data that I would have had a data scientist before to do. And now it's like kind of in my hands. And now that leaves the data scientist to go do more interesting things, right? Like, I feel like we keep kind of pushing and finding new problems, but it is like, I feel like it's changing fast.
Well, I ask our engineers, I say, should we be worried about AI replacing your jobs? And they say, no. The really great engineers see it as an opportunity to be the conductor of an orchestra. They're not doing the low-level work anymore. They're able to do so much more and offer such greater value because the things that were menial work that took them such long processing and development, they're able to simplify that, and they're focusing more on the architecture and on solving the bigger problems that way.
Sandy, is that how your work feels right now? Does that match?
Totally. And they're both creative, but they're creative in a different way. Instead of looking, the demand for building traditional machine learning models has decreased a little bit. And that doesn't mean that generative AI can do everything. There's still a need for that. But in those types of situations, I find myself, like you said, more of the solution architect mindset, right? It's like, how is this going to work with this? And if I pair this and this technology together, how do they work with each other? Rather than kind of having a more narrow focus and like, which features do I need to produce for this specific type of model? It requires a data scientist to have a more broad way of thinking about the entire system. which I think is a trend that we're seeing.
But not everybody wants to do that. Now we got to screen for something else too, right? Like this is hard work. This is actually one of those things where people say, oh, it's going to free us up to do more interesting work, more challenging stuff in this strategy. Not everybody wants to think that hard like all day long. So do we get a 3-4 hour work week? No, they keep, it's like, I don't know. I think this is going to be tough socially. Like this is
I think it opens us up to more of the creative thinkers, to people who are, looking at what are the challenges for us to face and to solve.
Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be tough. So, all right. So we get last word. I had one more question. I think this is a good one. And actually, I'm going to throw this one at you, Amit. It's what are the trends, like in terms of which industries are more actively looking to adopt AI right now? And I feel like, Sandi, you might also be encountering this too, but like, where are the industries where the biggest demand, like verticals, that people are like, more AI engineers, please? Where's that happening?
Well, it's funny. First, like it seems that every industry has added tech onto the back of it. We were only like firstly in a few certain industries. We were big in gaming because, of course, that's where a lot of development happens. But everything turned into, finance became fintech and medicine became medtech and all that. So the technology gets infused into everything. I wouldn't say that there's one specific industry that's rising above the others. The demand is immense of people wanting to figure out how to do more with less, and knowing that technology and AI will assist them in doing that.
All right, Sandi, you're sitting there as a consultant. Where are the industries that are hot right now?
I would totally agree. Every industry is hot. The level of maturity in each industry is a little bit different. I would say just in general, especially working with larger enterprise clients, higher margin businesses tend to have more money to spend, and sometimes they're a little bit more advanced. Like health, there's a lot of stuff in healthcare right now. There's a lot of emphasis on kind of like key use cases across all industries. However, I think the people that are like key use cases like Q&A style things with customers, being able to use AI or generative AI for customer service type problems. Those are kind of staple use cases out there right now that we see a lot of demand for, and that's cross industry agnostic. But the companies that seem to be implementing them a little bit faster are just those with a little bit more extra cash on hand.
All right, Hung, where are you seeing it?
I think essentially every organization is looking at AI as an opportunity to reduce costs. That's basically the reality. So the externalities that we've seen in the global marketplace is that obviously we've had increased cost of living, increased cost of business. There's pressure in every head of department to look at, okay, how are you running your department? Can you get more efficient? So there isn't a leader out there that isn't thinking about, okay, I need to AI this. And oftentimes you can, it is the reality. There's lots of components in most of our jobs that we thought were very much kind of embedded in the work, in the job we did. It turns out that actually we can use artificial intelligence to support with. So in my world, in the world of recruitment, for instance, we might think of things like interview scheduling, for instance. Previously there was a lot of like interview logistics that needed to be coordinated. Chasing people up for, are you available here or there, and whatever. There's actually departments of people that had jobs doing this. Recruitment coordinators was a thing. I say it was a thing because there's still people doing that job right now. Recruitment coordinators, search them on LinkedIn. But I put it to you that job is not long for this world. It will be one of those that will go because the technology is superior in every respect. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's more accurate. So it's gonna come in. And as a final point on this, it will also be rolled into us whether we like it or not. So there's an element where for people in the people business, we need to be very proactive with actually identifying areas of work that we currently do that are highly exposed to artificial intelligence. And we need to be proactively removing that function from our job. Because if we don't, we're going to be sitting on something and spending time on something that will be eliminated by a technology rollout. I would say every month, one of the big players will roll out an update that will render a component of somebody's job like irrelevant. And it's coming at us whether we choose it or not. There's not even a technology decision that a CTO would make. Microsoft will update sort of 365 tomorrow or with something, and then suddenly people's jobs change. So we have to be proactive. And one of the roles I think talent has, like the people function has, is to help organizations identify what is AI exposed, what is AI insulated, and move our people more towards the AI insulated work and leave the AI exposed work kind of human free, and push tech into those spaces.
You know, what I'm going to say is, like, as we're wrapping up here, what that meant for my work, which y'all might find kind of interesting, because it actually plays into what I'm doing right here. Someone asked me once of my transferable skills, this actually came to mind for me when I had a conversation with Josh Linkner on his podcast like months ago. And I would have said before ChatGPT, 2 years ago, before like all that rolled out, I would have said it was my writing skills. And I think a lot of people might still try to say, well, you're a writer and you're an editor. It's like, no, it turns out the part that is transferable are my interviewing skills, because I use ChatGPT. I do my writer and all these tools. Gen AI does my typing. It doesn't do my thinking. It doesn't really come in to do an interview. It's like I use it for prep. I use it for all these other things. But the part that it can't do is actually this conversation that we're having. And so the percentage of time that I'm now spending doing things like, connecting people, like I'm here to build connections, even more so like than it is to make content. And that's an interesting way to think about all the jobs, right? Like, where is the people-y part of your job? And where does the magic happen? Where does the mess happen? So Sandi, I like this for you because it's like, that's theater, baby. Like, that's theater, like what is the part that like is unpredictable? I think we're craving the unpredictable now. And as we kind of develop these tools, you got to hire people who like the unpredictable. So we'll do rapid fire. In one sentence, what is your advice to someone who has to hire people to adapt to this AI environment? You get one sentence, and I'm going to start with you, Hung. What is the one thing that they have to do? You got to hire people with these skills. What do you do?
I think you need to look inward. This sounds like sounds like a comedy skit, but look inward. You do, because you need to basically embrace the use of AI yourself. I think we still have a huge gap in this space. We have a lot of people making decisions on technology decisions where they themselves don't have a proximity to the outputs themselves. You've got to use it sort of every day. If you find that you're not, you've actually got to create space in your calendar to do so, because you've got to get it at a visceral level. You can't just read a blog post or even watch this webinar and think you know what you're doing. You can't get it at a theoretical level. You have to get into it, like intimately. It's like learning to swim. You can't do it by reading a book. You got to dive into the water. And that's my advice for everyone. You got to kind of live in the water a little bit, to be honest. So yeah.
Sandi, what do? They got to hire.
If you come up in a scenario where you need to hire someone and there's no obvious fit, look for someone who has proven themselves in other ways, someone who has self-built a portfolio to be able to show you what they're capable of, someone who publishes things about what they learn, just signs in other ways that they might be a good fit if they don't have the exact skills that you're looking for and you can't find someone.
Okay. Vincent, how do they hire?
So I think the most important thing to start with is be deliberate about defining the problem you're actually trying to solve by hiring this person, and then adapt accordingly. Right. So don't blindly follow the trends. Don't try to do AI because you read about it in a blog post or because Microsoft is investing in this and therefore you have to as well. look at your own problem. What are you trying to solve? What are the goals that you're trying to achieve? And then adapt your hiring based on that. And it's still hard to find the right people, but I agree with what the other folks have said here. Like, look for people who are adaptable and versatile. And like Marielle, like you said, you have great interviewing skills rather than great writing skills, right? The things that only people can do that AIs won't soon replace.
All right, Amit, you can take us out. What do they got to do to hire for these jobs?
Understand where you are, understand your business, and don't look to replace what you're doing or the people you are. Know the beauty of what made you an amazing company and look for the people that will take you on the journey to level up every part of your business to the next phase.
All right. Well, I will call that the last word. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us. You can find all of us on LinkedIn. We're all pretty active. And LinkedIn, obviously, you can subscribe to Hung's newsletter if you're not already reading it. You can follow Sandy. You can follow Vincent. Emmett's got a very fun LinkedIn profile. You should follow him too. Things that surprise me, like there's all kinds of fun stuff over there, and I am there as well. This webinar will be available on demand afterwards. Give us like a few hours to kind of render and clean up the files, but we'll push that out in case you want to share it with colleagues. And if you have any other questions for us, just send us a note and we will work on getting them answered. So I just wanted to personally thank you all for giving me this hour of your time. I learned so much, as I always do in these conversations. And now I'm just going to go process all these things that I learned and go find some lunch. So thank y'all. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.